Yeah, you can do whatever you want. Cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, I too have been trying. Well, I think we discussed that when we spoke the first time. But yeah, I've been trying to live without using the passport, driver's license, anything, and that became complicated for me. Like when my aunt died earlier this year, and I wasn't able to catch the airplane, so that kind of.
Yeah, and you're not a guy who wants to go, or maybe capable. After 25 years of doing this, I've learned some skills. So I started out with an affidavit with my photo on it. That's with a notary public, working for the governor, who attested to I was the one who signed it, and it was a picture of me. So, it's kind of one of those things where if I had to go, I'm kind of frustrated that I actually won my passport now, because it works in lieu of a real ID, because it doesn't really qualify as a real ID.
But you can travel on a passport domestically.
We shouldn't have to.
Correct. Absolutely.
Are you saying you want to battle the real ID thing? Is that what you want to?
I think America has to stop drinking whatever waters. It's like eliminating all the manly testosterone, right? What a bunch of wimps. The entire country, pardon my language, they're a bunch of sissies. So we gotta, maybe the next generation.
I hope so.
And I'll tell you guys, wait a minute. Okay. I wrote a book, Dave, The Final Frontier. Story in real life, a lot of miracles. And I was suing the United States when I wrote this. Don't even mention it. There's one line that let people know I had lawyer bills that I was having to pay. But it has all these stories of divine intervention. I mean, literal divine intervention. And that's what we've been seeing. And even in Abby's case, I think I told Rez this, where this last meeting we had with her lawyers, and I told them, guys, what you're seeing, it looks like you're seeing a miracle. That it's like there's a divine stupor on the DOJ. Nobody would be so stupid to fight a losing case. All they would have to do to moot it would be to just give her passport. That's all they got to do. The whole thing disappears. Because they didn't, when they amended the complaint, they took out the part about damages. Okay, so they're just going to get the lady her passport. That's all they would have to do. And I told the guys, I said, guys, you're going to see this go to the oral argument and get a judgment published because there's a divine stupor on these guys. There's no other explanation for it, and that's exactly what happened, right? And the judge says, "Oh no, it isn't moot. I can do something. Look, she doesn't have a passport," right? And having her fill out another form, she has no requirement in the law to jump through another hoop, right? Yeah. I can provide relief. Give her the passport. And because of that, he did what he did, and people will be able to quote that case.
The opinion was really good. Yusuf I saw his covering of it, and he was just like, man, this judge is really giving it to him. It's like he has a vendetta against the state or something.
Yeah. And I told Abby, I said, like, I got it first, because I'm getting all the notices on the computer. She's doing ministry out with a team, and she's not really accessing computers. I have to contact her for her to check her email. And I said, Abby, I saw the published opinion, and I said, Abby, oh my goodness. I said, you're a woman highly favored by the Lord. I said, it's the cheekiest opinion I've ever read. And that was perfect for her, that term cheeky. She likes like British stuff, and that's a popular British word, right? Like Thomas is the cheeky one, Thomas the tank engine. But she loved, just the fact that he opens it up mockingly, right? And then at the end, he says, what is it about? He said about the fun house, to end the bureaucratic fun house or something like that. That was hilarious.
I invited a group that's common law, they've freedom oriented to this, and I was surprised at the reaction that I got from several members in this group. They were wondering, well, how are you going to get these benefits, and how are you going to prove you've got property and that it's yours? And I'm like, there's lots of ways of doing that.
Yeah. And they're freedom lovers saying that?
They claim to be, yeah.
Are they the
Wow.
Are they the Republican, the right? They sound like Republican right kind of freedom lovers.
Right.
I think they know what kiwi boot polish tastes like.
How are you going to pay your taxes? Money? Federal Reserve notes? Right? Well,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know where you're going. I gave you some fuel for the fire. Do you start out with a bumper music or?
No.
No. Okay.
No, I just do a little welcome to the Freedom Unchained channel. That's about it.
Okay.
And
That's good.
I'll riff off the top of my head. So I'm not a script or a teleprompter kind of guy.
I do have a script if you want it, but yeah, I know.
What did you want to introduce them?
Yeah, I can.
All right, I'll just do
But
a little
it's scripted,
quick
guys, and I'm not Hollywood.
Hey, I gotta tell you, I gotta warn you. I've been watching Alex Jones, not all the time, but once in a while I see what he does. And, he has I gotta commend him so much. But I discovered firsthand that he says what he thinks without seeing whether what he thought is accurate. So one of his staff called me about 15 or 20 years ago, and he said, and he wanted help, and people call me and I help them. That's just what I do, right? So, and I don't bill them, I just help people. But a guy needed help, and he's telling me, and he told me who he was, and I said, "You're on Alex Jones." I said, when I won my Navy case, I thought Alex Jones would take that and run with it. I mean, that's sensational. I beat the Navy on the SSN case, and they have to pay me for the rest of the life as if I was retired. I mean, that's crazy, right? It's divine intervention. So, and I said, I'm really surprised you didn't pick up on that or whatever. And he said, oh no, he said that you're a mole. He said, nobody could win that kind of case. It's impossible. So you've got to be a government agent. So I'm warning you, in the opinion of Alex Jones, I'm a mole. I'm a government agent. And I really wish he would have called me and checked, maybe to try to expose me for everybody. And then I think he would have found out what really was going on. It was called a miracle. I was literally on a mission from God, and God showed up.
Just curious on that note, did you also retain your VA benefits?
I don't know. I don't know, because I just abandoned everything, lost everything, right? And lost my banking. Actually, I started a corporation just prior to the Patriot Act, and I have access to bank, but not in my own person.
Yeah, I was referring to your voucher, your payment stub that you shared that had no TIN on it, and I'm wondering, did they do the same for the VA? Give you an account with no TIN?
I would have to go there and ask for a waiver. Like, I got my safe right here next to me, and I could go in my medical records or whatever, and redact everything that I don't want anybody to see, and then say, hey, I'd like to know under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act if I can, because they now, by the way, issue service numbers just like I asked for in my case. They now, after my case in 2008, the Navy military personal identification number is a Navy generated service number, not the SSN.
Yeah, Garrett, we can't hear you. He might be talking to somebody else, I guess. No, but that's interesting. Hopefully you never need it as far as the VA stuff. Yeah. How do you handle other ministers that don't agree with you that this is the mark of the beast?
I don't bring it up. I've people brought it. I had a guy get me on his radio show. I was going to talk about the voluntariness of SSN, and it turned out he really just wanted to ambush me and mock me over my religious, concepts and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I just love people, man. That's what you got to do.
Yeah. Garrett, are you still with us? Okay.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
gotta go sterile cockpit.
David was jumping. The other David was jumping into all the rooms, so I went over and said that we'll do a little Q&A at the end, if that's fine. Some other people want to come jump in. So I'm going to put some spots up here at the top that are invisible that people can come in later. So give me a second. I forgot to do that.
Are you pretty comfortable with turning the mic on and the camera on and all of that stuff? Yeah. This is a pretty nice alternative to Zoom, I think. I love the ability to change out the rooms, create a bunch of alternate rooms, and all of that good stuff. Okay.
All right. There we go. There should be like four spots down at the bottom if anybody wants to come in. But I think David wants to come in. I gave him the link over there in the fun hall. All right. So okay. I think we're about to get started. So let me get it going. All right, so you're doing the intro. I'm just going to do the welcome to the Freedom Unchained channel, this is Fundamentals every Thursday night.
Yeah, Fundamentals.
All right. All right, give me a couple seconds. All right, you ready? Here we go. Welcome to the Freedom Unchained channel. This is our Thursday night Fundamentals interview with today it's with David Alan Carmichael. Yeah, that might be a familiar name for you guys, but no, it was 8 o'clock, but we actually changed it to 7 o'clock from now on. So just to let you guys know, it's 7 from now on, and we're gonna let Rez introduce our guest.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Our guest today, again, is David Alan Carmichael, a constitutional litigant with documented federal court victories protecting religious freedom, including a recent landmark case where his daughter, Abigail Jordan, secured a U.S. passport without a social security number based on religious conviction. The court ruled the government has no compelling interest to demand the social security number, enforcing the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, or RFRA. Now, Mr. Carmichael is petitioning he's petitioning the HHS secretary, which is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to create a formal procedure allowing conscientious objectors to remove SSN records, arguing that without this path, Americans enumerated at birth remain trapped in involuntary servitude. So with that, welcome, David Carmichael.
Thank you, guys. I was looking forward to this. I know I'm going to enjoy it.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, you popped up on my subscribers, and so I figured this has got to be the Carmichael link to that Carmichael case going around, Abigail Carmichael Jordan against Rubio. Mm-hmm. Everyone's talking about that, and I figured, I don't know why no one's interviewed you yet or found your channel. So I got a bunch of people subscribing to your channel last night. But so which channel you want to grow? Is there?
I don't know.
I put both of them in the link down below.
Right now. Yeah, right now it's like I would love to have nothing but that to concentrate on. But because I'm still in my passport case, I'm still duking it out with the DOJ over Equal Access to Justice Act payment of my costs, right? So I'm doing that. Just came back from the Supreme Court. They denied my petition. I can tell you about that. And it was so I've been doing litigation. I was doing helping Abby with her litigation So what I've been doing since August is basically I'm treating myself like a client because I got to get my house in order. So I'm trying to, like, before the end of the year, got my house in a trust now, and I'm just kind of doing things so that I can either go on vacation, start a video podcast, or go see Jesus. But whenever I do, I got to make sure that all my stuff is totally taken care of. And if I need to step away, somebody can just pick up the 3-ring binder and operate the administration. So right now, I'm not, maybe if I could in the spring, maybe I could provide some kind of machinery for people to get information.
All right, well, we'll just send them to both of your channels. So anybody, both of his channels, links are in the descriptions. Subscribe to his channel, so when he's getting back on the camera and sharing all this good information, you guys will already be subscribed to get all this good information. Yeah. A lot of his videos are really good. I'm excited to go through a lot of them.
They're good.
So what would you like to talk about today? Would you like to talk about the famous case, just to get it out of the way?
I'm going to put a little more context into it. What Rez talked about, he said, without an SSN. Now, my case, when I sued for the passport, I can tell you about that. That's pretty sensational. But it was no SSN. With Abby, she didn't have a birth certificate, right?
Yeah.
So that's what happened with her. And the reason she didn't have a birth certificate was because she didn't want to have an SSN because of the enumeration at birth, the trigger that a birth certificate does. So it's up to you. You guys figure out what it is you want to hear about, and I hope that I can be as informative.
Well, I think a good path to talk about is just kind of maybe how you got Abigail not into the system, how you raised her, and because that's kind of area that I'm passionate about. I got a young daughter and stuff like that, and I think a lot of men and women as well that want to bring children into this world want to understand the ways to not be forced to give birth certificates and social security numbers and stuff like that. So if you have anything to talk about on that, that would be a good place to start.
Okay, so I'll back up a little bit, and I'm going to give an observation. I've had a lot of people calling me to help them for their children number, but they're not doing it. Well, there's a reason. There's pragmatism. It's not going to happen. You're just going to put your kids in a bind. Are they going to is your young daughter going to be able to fight the fight for herself? So I want you, just before we start talking about it, that's an important thing. One of the things that my kids have was, I was in the Navy as a chief petty officer, transferring to my last shore duty before retirement, and God spoke to me. He's a lunatic. Okay, good. I had a Moses burning bush moment, and I was dealing with this. I couldn't reconcile the fact that this number, you need it for everything. It was a military personnel identification number. You can't get a bank account, can't go vote, you can't get a driver's license, can't go to the doctor, you can't. And all of a sudden, I'm kind of like going, God, this is like too much of a Revelation chapter 13-ish. The number of the beast, not the mark, but the number. And so I'm struggling. And one day, and I said to God, it's a still small voice. I don't know if this is me or you. And I said, I need more than a still small voice. And I got a loud one. Will you forsake it when they come for your DNA? I'm like, what? Oh, and I get it. Like, give me your DNA or else. You get kicked out of the Navy or whatever. Can't get a bank account, something. And I realized, and I said, well, sure. And I'm thinking, the year 2525 sci-fi, whatever, whenever that's going to happen, sure. And I kind of felt comfortable, like, good. Okay, God's told me what the threshold is. And then it was a little over a week later. Guess what they were doing? They were coming for my DNA. And I'm like, oh, no. And I realized, and I got out of that, because when you have a career chief petty officer asking for a waiver, that wasn't going to go over too well. But they kind of buried me because they had till January 1999. This was 1994. And And so they weren't in a rush. So they didn't, and I was on the A team, man. They needed me, so they didn't mess with me on that. But I got to figure out how to live without an SSN. So I said, okay, God, I'll look into it. I didn't do it. I didn't forsake the number right away because I didn't know the law. And then look what I got. I got a law library. I had a lot of miracles happen where I could actually go read the law and find out that there's no law requiring anybody to have an SSN. So I knew that. So it came to the point where I understood that I would be able to obey God and man. So I had no excuse. And so in October of 1996, I wrote to the SSA and said, hey, I was defrauded. My mom was defrauded. Everything that you got in your records is totally bogus. I and my family will never get a benefit, and we are never going to identify with your number. Love, David. And so I get kicked out of the Navy. And so when you're facing losing your career, losing your retirement, not being able to get hired, I didn't know I was going to lose my driver's license yet. I didn't know about Section 666 of the Federal Welfare Code. I didn't know about that stuff yet. And so I got kicked out of the Navy. I got from being the honored guy to the scoundrel. And so when you experience that, when you lose everything, when you lose your reputation at church, when you get your wife to hate your guts, notwithstanding that she loves you, right? She's under the mandate to love you. When you go through all that, okay, we got from this point on, once you die, at that point it gets kind of, you experience the persecution and you can roll with the punches. So at that point, I'm living the life without a number, and I'm making sure that my kids aren't associated with a number. And then we just go one thing at a time. I think my daughter, when she was 15, went to get her driver's license. They kicked me out with security, right? Well, it took, 6 years, she finally got a driver's license. So it took a lot, and that was my oldest daughter, who's 10 years older than Abby. So, and so, I got my kids, they got passports. So I actually got my passport because my oldest two kids needed passports. So I did it with them, right? I didn't just push them and say, here, you go do this without a number. I went with them. I lead the way, and I take them with me. And so that's been the lifestyle, is you have to live it, and you have to be courageous, and you have to be well-studied. You have to know the Word of God, because all the laws back here, this, I could tell. I read all this and I realized that I can tell you what the law is without reading these, because I know the Bible. And then people ask me questions about law, I answer the question, and then I look this up after and show them a case quote, right? Okay, so I don't want to just go running on a monologue here, but that's pretty much it. You just got to go living like a madman. Foxes have holes, birds have nests, the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Follow me, Jesus said, right? And that's put up or shut up. It's really, everybody thinks I have this great faith. Oh, David, you have so much faith. I said, actually, no, I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to, I didn't want to do it. I was obedient because of the mustard seed that God had given me. But I don't have a monster. I'm not a man of faith per se, but I think I'm a man of obedience. And in the middle of obeying, you get the faith to walk on water. That's what happens.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Definitely, it's scary at times, but just being in the faith definitely gives you encouragement.
Yeah.
Before we move on, this might be a little off topic, but what is your experience? Are you into the trust? I'm really getting into the ecclesiastical trusts and building, the idea of building my legacy through trusts and stuff like that. Are you into that kind of stuff yet?
Well, right now, and again, I don't go to the seminars. I know a lot of people are talking about trust. There's a lot of protections in trust. I just Friday executed a trust for 2 pieces of property because my wife and I are getting old. We've watched my mom go through dementia, and then my wife's mother's going through that. And my mom had everything in a trust. As soon as she went crazy, my brother and I could just take over and do everything she needed. And it was just such a great way to serve my mother. And then my wife's mother doesn't have all those things in hand, and they're having problems juggling her situation. So just this week, I set it up because so that, and I have two different things. We got property that should be making income, and we got property that we list that we want to be shelter. And so I've got two different trusts, but really they're there to take care of myself and my wife, and my kids are the trustees because I trust them, and we raised them to be trustworthy people. Right.
That's good. Yeah. So you're kind of just getting into that and starting to understand those things as well then?
No, I've understood it for decades. I've written trusts for other people.
Okay.
What it is I've been too busy helping everybody else and not taking care of
yourself.
That's why I say nothing. I'm trying to get it all done. I got to treat myself like a client.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, when I say client, I don't bill people. Jesus says, give to him who asks. And sometimes if somebody needs help. So if you're available, help them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
If they could afford to pay someone, they'd hire a lawyer.
That's for sure.
Liar.
Yep. So let's how was your experience through this your daughter's case? Is there anything you want to share on that, or you just want to jump into your other cases?
Yeah, because I was in the middle of I'll tell you how I got in the middle of my passport case. Got a passport in 2008, came up for renewal in 2018. I sent in the form and I wrote a request for religious accommodation regarding the SSN requirement. I told them my religious convictions and I cited my Navy case. Okay, we won in the federal circuit. So, I'm on record. This is nothing new. And also, I'd gotten an accommodation the first time, 2008. Please renew my passport. They did. I had it back in 10 days. And it turns out people are calling me all over the country saying, David, did you get your passport renewed? Yeah. They won't let me do mine. So all of a sudden, I found people that needed help. They didn't know how to communicate these things to the agency. And so I called the agency. I got one guy to give me a power of attorney so I could do administrative assistance. And you can do that without being a lawyer. And so they knew me at the passport agency because I'm calling on behalf of somebody else. And they're talking to me about the other guy's case. They understood that the Privacy Act thing had taken care of in his situation. They were free to talk to me just as soon as they answered the phone and they heard who it was. And then so what happened was they weren't going to help anybody. They helped me. They allowed me to do it because I've had a successful federal case, but not anybody else. So I drafted a complaint. They sent it out to lawyers. They said, oh, great complaint, but no. It's going to be a 6-figure case just to get your passport because the way the government does, they fight you to the end, right? Yeah. So I said, hey, everybody, write the White House and ask for access to that religious task force they said they had. And so everybody wrote, I don't know, it might have been a dozen people. And then the White House just sent the stuff to the passport agency and that was it. They sent me a letter back. Thank you for your correspondence. We've sent it to the agency. Agency writes me back regarding the White House correspondence. Didn't write anybody else, just me. What's up with that? And then 2 days later, I get a letter saying, your passport has been revoked for not giving an SSN. But just prior to that, I had prayed, and after all the lawyers told people, no, just go away. Leave us alone. I prayed, and I said, God, these people need a champion. They need, like when I had herpetitis back in my Navy case, God gave me herpetitis as my champion. These people need a champion. I said, God, I'm not allowed to be their lawyer. Would you please send them a champion? Right. And I was thinking lawyer. But what happened is they revoked my passport. So guess what? I can be my lawyer, right? I can be my lawyer. I can't be their lawyer, but I can be my lawyer. So I filed suit and 2 other people joined me. Other people were sitting back on the bleachers waiting to see what happened. So we ended up getting a decision saying they couldn't show a compelling interest for demanding an SSN. Praise the Lord. But still they just were playing. From that point on, the writing was on the wall. We had won the case effectively, but they kept playing games with us to try just whatever. So that was going on. I filed my suit in July 2019. We started correspondence for Abby's passport at the same time. I think I filed my case and then turned to draft Abby's letters. So she's sitting next to me and we're talking about it, and I'm the typist. And then so we started that in 2019, did FOIAs and all kinds of stuff, and she got turned down once. And so at this point, because I'm in the middle of the litigation and she's in the middle of doing full-time ministry with Youth with a Mission and taking young people off and doing training, that it took a while. And then so finally July 2024, so 5 years later, we finally had Abby's complaint went in, and so that's the background of that. Now I'm trying to remember what your question was.
Just anything you wanted to bring up about her case, talk about her case before we move on to more of the stuff that you wanted to talk about.
Good. What was significant? Okay, I'm going to tell you divine intervention. All right. So I drafted a complaint before I'd ever read. I got a book now. I now know how to write a book, write a complaint correctly, because there's a book on my shelf, and I'd never read that thing. But so I wrote this complaint for her. That was pretty much kind of like what we learned in our litigation. And then she looked it over, she liked it, and she submitted it. And we also filed them. I say we because I'm her typist, right? So, right, I'm the admin guy. So, if for a lot of our ministry, we do Christian ministry. I'm an admin. I'm the admin guy. But so there was a motion for immediate emergency motion to compel the issuance of the passport, and so she filed in forma pauperis because she's poor. She and her husband are Christian missionaries. They just eat if somebody feeds them, right? So she filed it, and it was 90 days later. They still had not filed their complaint, and there was a motion to compel that was supposed to be an emergency motion. They wouldn't even file her complaint. So she filed a motion to expedite the processing of her in forma pauperis petition. And what's neat about this is, and this shows you divine intervention going on here. They get the thing in the mail, like you get it, the postal guy scans it when he delivers it to the clerk of court in the DC District Court, and 34 minutes later from that moment, an order came out ordering the approval of her petition. And if you've ever dealt with courts, that means somebody saw it, opened it up, and went, "Uh-oh, it's been 100 days, and this lady's still waiting for her to file her petition or her case." So, judge, look what we've done wrong. Boom, files it, orders McFadden as the judge. McFadden, I looked at his bio. He is a graduate of Wheaton College. That's Billy Graham's college. It's a college for missionaries, right? It's a famous for missionaries. McFadden went to that school, right? So I'm thinking, Abby, you're a woman highly favored by the Lord. And he immediately ordered the government to answer her demand within 7 days. When do you see that, right? He's treating this pro se poor lady with honor. He's treating her just like he would a lawyer of billionaires, right? So she continues on, and the DOJ just fights her. It's clearly they're just bullies.
Yeah.
And so what happens is Judge McFadden obviously he's read the complaint, knows it's a winning case. This is no brainer, but it'd be better for this young lady to have a lawyer who knows what they're doing, right? So he gave an order that says, Abby, you have till December 4th to ask for a free lawyer. And she was like, wait a minute, you don't know what you're going to get, because it's just the clerk going to a pool of volunteers and goes see who's available. That could be dangerous. So, but it turns out Judge McFadden had a clerk, a guy working for him, who had just moved to a law firm of billionaires, Gibson, Dunn, and Kreitzer, I don't know, something like that. And he invited his former clerk to take the case. We didn't know it at the time. Turned out he had not litigated a case yet. And he was a Harvard grad. You know, got with great potential. And the judge is inviting him to take this thing. He was so excited. Imagine there you are, you're without a lawyer, you're doing it yourself, and you get a lawyer excited to take your case with no pay. And the team, and he had a supervisor, Jonathan Bond, who's amazing. I've seen his oral arguments when he was working for the DOJ, his oral arguments in the Supreme Court. He's the most competent DOJ lawyer I've seen arguing in the Supreme Court. That's my opinion. And I told him that, once I met him. So he's overseeing it, kind of coaching, and so they treated her like she was a billionaire. They treated her like she was paying six figures, multiple six-figure convictions protected. It was just the most amazing thing to see. And again, what I did is I said to her and them, this is what came out of me, not out of them. I'm not disclosing their confidentiality, but I said to them, I said, guys, you're seeing a miracle. Nobody in their right mind, as experienced 30-year DOJ lawyer, would keep fighting this. They would just give her the passport and then file a motion to make the case moot, and they would win. The judge would have no choice but to dismiss the case with prejudice, right? But because you're seeing them dig in over something that's ridiculous, I said, I think we're getting God's mighty hand to put a stupor on their minds because he's going to glorify himself. I said, you're going to get an oral argument, you're going to get a judgment, and probably get published because these guys are in a stupor. That's what I said. Okay. I think it was my mind. I don't know, it was like a Holy Spirit, cooling me in. It was just kind of, I've seen this before in the last 20, 25 years, is that when you walk in obedience to what God calls you to do, he'll take down giants. It hasn't changed. So I think I want to share that with you.
Awesome. That's definitely a good story. For sure. I think when you're walking, you're doing God's work. You are a billionaire because you got all his resources. So you got all the resources in the world on your side. So any questions, Rez? You're over there in the chat.
Yeah, I'm trying to catch up with people in the chat, but I don't.
Yes, I'm a religious fanatic, guys. I am. I'm going to admit it right now.
I am waiting. Okay. We got David in there that wants to come and have a conversation with you later. He's a religious fanatic. So
okay, good.
We're in good company here. So now you have any cases going on right now, or?
No, I got the Equal Access to Justice Act thing that we're going to be arguing. Because I think actually the reason I wanted to continue to push my passport case to judgment, we'd claim damages. We wanted a judgment because if you don't get a judgment, they continue to do the wrong thing over and over and over. I'm still getting calls from people. They're ignoring their request for religious accommodation. So I wanted to get a judgment. So that's what we're arguing that to the Supreme Court, is that they're ignoring the Supreme Court's ruling that the Religious Freedom Restoration Act contemplates damages where it says appropriate relief in the statute. So we took that Supreme Court. Of course, they're not going to take up my case. I'm a pro se guy and, did the best I could, but it's not adequate for them to take up. But nonetheless, I put the DC Circuit on report to the Supreme Court to show what they did to ignore the Supreme Court. So that was important, but my goal was for this way to have a mechanism for people to get a lawyer. If you win substantially on a case, you can get your lawyer's fees back. So turns out I didn't know that. I didn't study the Equal Access to Justice Act till after the Supreme Court denied the petition. And I found out that it's not the burden on me to show that we prevailed substantially, like we got a judgment. Turns out it's the burden's on the government to prove that they were substantially correct or had substantially a decent, non-frivolous reason for being the jerk that they were. Okay, well, they don't have that. So because our status changed, but for the litigation, we wouldn't have a passport. So because of that, we get costs under the Equal Access Justice Act. So I'm seeking that judgment because it's important. I want people to not call me. I want them to call their lawyer who knows that they can get paid at the end of it. That's what I got now. So, I guess, so now I have to shift gears because there's only so many years I have left on the planet. Guess what? We can't bank yet. That's totally illegal, totally unlawful that the comptroller of the currency has told all banks, they call it no U.S. person may have a banking or financial services or whatever, you can't buy stocks or whatever, without an SSN. Well, that's ridiculous, but it needs to be taken on. That's a huge Goliath to little tiny David. I need to deal with that. But also, I need to deal with this involuntary servitude of having somebody, your parents, lied to and having your name associated with this number. And you can go in a DMV in Virginia and tell them that notwithstanding your XY chromosomes, you're a girl. It's the same paragraph that demands an SSN, then says, oh, by the way, just because you were once a boy and will always be one, you can be a girl anyway. But if you ever had an SSN associated with you, no, we're going to have that number associated with you forever. And under 42 USC 666, right? And so I can't have a driver's license until I get the HHS docket, their records, redacted, erase my name. You don't have to get rid of the record, but there's nothing saying you can't change the information on it, so nobody is ever going to be able to associate me with the damnable number. So that's what I'm working, and that's why I sent to you. I sent that letter to Secretary Kennedy requesting for a procedure so that people like Rez said, for conscientious reasons, religious, whatever the motivation, to get in there and change the record to set them free from slavery.
Did you have any issue other than, I understand Abigail's hesitation to use the birth certificate or apply for one because of the fear that they would force her into the Social Security number?
Right.
I understand that, but are there any other reservations that you or Abigail have around the birth certificate itself?
You know what? I have not gotten into some of the things that you guys discuss with regard to trusts and, them selling, basically it's like a stock certificate. I mean, when I was doing my own radio show, I talked about special drawing rights, which is the new currency, global currency, where they, basically take the numbered heads of a country and see how much money they should loan them based on their resource. Some of that resource is human, right? So I know about that. I know what's happening in the background. And whatever their sick motivation, that's on them. When I get into Congress, I'll address that. But for now, it's just between us and our neighbor, whoever I am who I am, a man of God in Christ, and that's who I am. I'm not a number. Revelation 13, 16 through 18, it appears, I'm connecting the dots, that's a prohibition to embrace this universal identifier as an element of your identity. So God says, don't do it. And, and also I will tell you that week, I told you that week where you get rid of it, they come for your DNA. That week, all of a sudden, these ideas were happening in my mind. This is 1994, that they were going to progress from the SSN to the marks on my right hand or my forehead. I don't mean just pictures, like scanning, right? I saw that in 1994, and I understood that week before they asked for my DNA. So I didn't, and again, sometimes hard to tell. Is God cluing you in on something, or are you just connecting dots in your brain logically? And so now we see it. The real ID I can't do the real. I can't like go to the airport and say, well, we're going to have to scan your face to get on the airplane. No. During COVID, we need to scan your face to get into the courthouse to file your title paperwork. No, you're not going to give me a thermometer. You got a thermometer? I'll take my temperature, right? I'll wear a bag over my head, mask. I'll do whatever you got. No, you're not going to scan my face for me to do those things necessary in the ordinary requirements of life and business. No, we're not doing the number of the beast. We're not doing the mark of the beast. But also, when God told me that, if they come for your DNA, all of a sudden I realized maybe there sometime not only your marks on your hand or you're scanning your face, but actually getting your DNA to connect your identity, your biometric identity, to that damnable number. That's what I understood in 1994. So we have had occasion as family members to have to not scan our hand, not scan our faces. And I'm standing against the damnable beast. That's what I'm doing. And I'm going to try to do it lovingly.
COVID was another touchy time, especially here in New York City. There was a time there where my family could go out into markets, into sporting events, or to restaurants, but you had to have a card, and the card had to indicate that you were vaccinated, or you couldn't get in. And I think that woke a lot of people up to some of this Orwellian. You keep saying the 1994, but every time you say that, I'm thinking 1984.
84. Yeah. Right. Now this is weird too. Okay, I'm a troublemaker, but it's really because I'm upholding the law, and I'm not against the law. I'm for good government. When this COVID thing had Virginia, I'm teaching a young adult Bible study, and I go, well, how do we address this, guys? I can't get emotional. I got to go to the Word of God and go to the law. So I did a study on government in the Bible, and I said, okay, now let's look at the authority structure. Let's go to the Constitution of Virginia, read the Constitution. Well, now let's look at the orders about you can't do things, right? That people are going to jail under the governor's orders, So we found the statute that created this mechanism, and it turns out that it's unconstitutional because they basically created a fourth branch of government without changing the Constitution by making this commissioner of health have this certain powers. And so we read through all that, and we said, well, even let's just presume it's legal. Let's keep reading. And it turns out that before the governor can execute the law regarding this, the health commissioner has to file a petition in a court where the disease is happening. And then there's a certain period of time where the people can respond in that court and argue the issue. And then the court decides for the commissioner, then the governor can execute it. Well, guess what? I contacted through my Sunday school class, with them watching, contacted the health commissioner, and they answered back saying, we did not file a petition in any court because they never, so that was it. The commissioner had never made that declaration, and no petition had ever been filed because the health commissioner had never made that declaration. The governor was executing power without authority. That's tyranny. And so I wrote the governor and I said, dear or honorable Governor Northam, not dear, I said, and I told him, you're violating the law. You're violating the Constitution. You're violating the statute. You're exercising power without authority. I have a duty before God and my fellow Virginian to uphold the law and to keep your actions from hurting anybody. I said, so if your order does, and I listed things, if it messes up with my relationship in my church fellowship, if it interferes with my personal liberty, I'm suing you personally under Title 42, 1983. And so, and I had it served on the governor. I served through also personally, at the office, at his place of business, and through the guys. Next day, I can't say this is my fault, but an order came out saying they're no longer arresting people. They're going to enforce it through whoever's like the commissioner of revenue, whatever, the localities, through businesses, making sure that businesses comply with the health requirements, right? So it happened the next day. So So I feel like I kind of been joking about Don Quixote. I see a windmill and I just got to pull out my sword and go for it. So because of this, it's turned out to be a calling where God showed me I needed to forsake that number, and where He revealed to me all the lawlessness that's going on, and then He put me in a situation where I had to sue the United States, and I won. Right? Wow, the law still works, and because of that, and the beast system is just running amok because the people are not doing their due diligence, and I think it might be affected by people's eschatology. And I had somebody confront me, and I said, the reason why you're actually confronting me is because you believe if I were right, you would not be here right now. And she said, yes. Okay, that's it. So you can't believe that I'm right about my belief that this SSN is the number of the beast. Right. So I can't be right because her eschatology says she won't be here when it shows up. Okay, you got a 50-50 chance.
Your little notice reminds me of you ever heard of Cal Washington? You ever came across him? Mm-hmm. So he does the notice of liability, which it seems kind of like what you wrote to the governor kind of thing. It started out that he was finding a notice on your door for these smart meters, and he figured out if they give you notice, then you can notice them back for their liability, and if they continue on to what they're doing, and then they have to prove that what they're doing is not harmful, which is was harming people, and then he was going in and getting judgments and stuff against them, using or making them step out of their position and all that kind of stuff. But the notice would be noticed to the position and the man, so it would go with the man if they left the position, or it would stay with the position too, and that position would be noticed of.
Right, and
wrong they were doing.
If they exceed their authority, they exercise power without authority. They're acting on their own private person. Now, all this stuff I didn't learn. I hear people talking about that. I didn't go to seminar. I got divine intervention law library. Again, it was a miracle. God gave me a multi-$1,000 library at a Navy auction for $87.50.
Nice.
And I was trying to figure out the law, and for a hobby, I would go to the Navy auctions and buy things and sell it at a yard sale. It's a hobby. Sometimes you get a car. I've gotten campers that way, so it was a hobby. I was there, and I walk up to this big, they're 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot cardboard thing on a pallet, and I look over the wall, and I picked up, and I saw what American jurisprudence was. I need this, and I pulled up another one, United States Code annotated, the tax code. I need that. Title 42 Civil Rights Statutes. I need that, right? And I read another one was Title 28 Judicial Proceedings annotated. So it's got the little statute and then a bunch of case law, page after page of case law. Oh my gosh! So that God gave me a law library, so I could find out how do I obey God and man. And so what you do, and like I said, it's biblical. You give the guy notice. Hey, go to the person before you bring anybody else in on it. That's biblical. So you give them notice, right? And the goal is to restore your neighbor, to make, not to beat him over the head with a lawsuit bludgeon. The ministry is to correct your neighbor. I've had to do it so many times told me, oh, you can't be a soccer coach because we can't do a criminal background check unless you give us an SSN. Silly person, wrong, but you got to love them. And so at first they'd say no. Then I would do the notice through the attorney of the city attorney and basically tell them the law they're violating and let them know if you do not forthwith request a criminal background check without putting an SSN, I'm going to sue you personally because you're violating the law. And guess what? Unless you do that, they don't check. They just tell you no because they have power. No. And then the goal is to do that in such a way that you're still friendly to them, right? Because I want to make sure that, my primary calling is to establish you with a relationship with your Heavenly Father. It's my foremost goal. Now, in the meantime, I got to also protect myself, my daughter, who you're trying to be a bully unless they forsake their faith. So I got to take care of that. But in the meantime, let's make sure we're
you gotta protect your standing. You gotta yes. Like David said last night, you gotta put your 3x3 square and stake your standing, and you can be kind about it, but you still gotta stand your ground.
Yes.
David, I had a question for you. I've got a jumbled set of notes here, but I think I got this from your material, and it might have been from Garrett and I in another discussion, but I think I got it from your material. Did you have anything to say about the distinction between either citizen and national, or the status of non-citizen nationals, or anything like that? Okay, could you tell us about that?
I'll give you a little history of that. You hear a lot of stuff. You go to a lot of seminars, and a lot of people saying, "Oh, if you're a citizen, you're a slave, you're this." A lot of, okay, that's good. It might be right. Okay, but I'm kind of guy like, please show it to me wherever you can, whether it's here or someplace. I want to see historically where I can connect that. I've read William Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England, among other writers that the founders of our nation were reading, because I have a desire to know what the truth is. Right. So I asked Herb Titus. He's the founding dean of the Regent Law School and Oral Roberts University School of Law. So he's a guy well respected as a constitutional expert. And I asked him, he said, well, there's just things that are still being debated. He says, I couldn't actually answer that question absolutely. And so I thought, well, that's good. At least let's just say the jury's still out on some of those issues. However, I had to answer Abby's question about that, because she's very conscientious. She hadn't been to any seminars, anybody bringing this up. But when she says something, swear that you are a U.S. citizen. She's like, I don't know what that is. I can't swear, right? She's very conscientious. So I said, okay, let's go find out what U.S. citizen is. So what we did is for her sake, for the context of what she was talking about, is it's the passport. And, we had to decide, well, do they have a right to say it's unlawful for a U.S. citizen to leave without a passport? Well, in the law of nations, technically, when they say unlawful, illegal, you can, in some instances, ignore illegal because it may not apply to you. But law is law. That's pretty absolute, and they are the king effectively. So yeah, let's play that silly game. And I said the law of nations, and it's good to, when you show up in another country, have before 2 or more witnesses, let every word be established. We only give this passport when somebody is not a scufflaw. They're not like an outlaw, right? They're not escaping from accountability. So this mutual, you can see that as being something that's legitimate as an exchange between different nations. So that was the background. And then we looked up the Foreign Affairs Manual regarding, you may have that. I thought I might have said it. There's a Foreign Affairs Manual that talks about the definition of and the law relating to citizens and nationals. Now we know, ignoring the 14th Amendment, before the 14th Amendment, we have a constitution that says to be a president, you have to be a natural-born citizen. To be the king of Israel, you had to be a natural-born Israelite, right? So there's these things that are happening in the Bible, or saved in our Constitution. So you have to be a natural-born citizen. So a natural-born citizen existed. They didn't say natural-born subject, because we're no longer subjects. It's a republic. So they got to use a word. They could have said Martian. You have to be a natural-born Martian, or a potato. They use the word citizen. I don't think there's a cabal, trying to control into citizen in that context. And then if you look at the Foreign Affairs Manual, it talks about the law of blood and the law. So it has a little discussion about the common law. When you're born on the law of England, there's certain rights of an Englishman that are available to you, right? There's certain rights that are available to my posterity by the law of blood, but also as we've established dominion on the land known commonly as Virginia, that we have certain inalienable, inherent God-given rights that we've produced a government as a delegate to protect us in those rights. That's our job, to protect me. And there are certain rights under the law of blood and the law of land. So, and then even knowing that, the history of War of 1812, they were conscripting guys, right? Because they're Americans, but their grandparents are Englanders, right? They're Englishmen. And if it goes to the right of the law of blood, goes to the third generation under the common law, right? So there's all this history related to citizenship, and it's some of it's biblical, some of it's even from pagan civil law or whatever. But I sit under the law and under the statute that Abby sued under, 8 USC 1503. She sued under violation of rights, benefits, privileges, whatever, of a U.S. national. And under the Foreign Affairs Manual explains that a person as a citizen has certain rights under the U.S. Constitution, and a national is somebody who isn't a natural-born citizen of the United States, like somebody can be president, and for whatever reason they're from Guam or whatever like that, some protectorate or something like that, maybe even, don't want to stretch farther than I've actually read. But so a national, the word national in that statute, as far as the context of that statute goes, a citizen is included under that umbrella. So that word national includes those who aren't U.S. citizens as well as United States citizens. So, and you hear a lot of discussion over citizenship, but don't take somebody's conclusory statement, do what you do in court, and you go look at the facts and you make the conclusion based on the facts, the evidence of law, not somebody's conclusory statements.
Yeah, well, I think the argument is that the United States has, everybody's been converted into U.S. citizen, but what was left behind was the idea of state nationality or state nationals kind of idea. So I think that's kind of the argument people are trying to make, is that you don't have to be a U.S. citizen, but you can be the state national. And
yeah, and I don't know, is that a tax benefit? I don't know. Again, when they tell me I'm not allowed to file taxes without an SSN, well, that's stupid. But if you're the regional director of the IRS here in this, in this area, and you command me, I'm not allowed to file a tax return without an SSN, okay, all right. I think you're wrong.
So when you have a farm,
I think the tax court was wrong when they said that was the truth. I think.
I was going to say, when you have a farm, say a cattle farm,
yeah.
right?
Right.
You tag all the cattle. You've got them enumerated. You know which one's got this injection or that injection, which one is due for this treatment or that treatment. Yeah. And if you've got a cow that's just not tagged, he's never going to be in the system to be called to go get the next vaccine or that next whatever.
Correct.
And that's
correct.
That's how I look at it. And
that's exactly what they're doing. And that is, there's certain inalienable rights that you do not forsake when you enter any state of society, so says Sir William Blackstone. So I can play your societal rules up to a point until you're asking me to forsake my absolute rights. You're asking me to not protect my family. You're asking me to violate my conscience, to disobey God. So that's when you say, get thee behind me, Satan. And we all, as Americans, have a duty to say no to this damnable voluntary servitude, right? 13th Amendment. No involuntary servitude. You're free in America to become a slave, but you're not, the government has no authority to coerce me into slavery.
Trick you.
Right? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, they can trick you, but they can't force you.
Well,
or they compel you with all these attachments, like the USC 666,
right.
And all those attachments. They compel you, but then they tell
right.
you you've got a way out. That's interesting too. Like in the domestic travel problem, right? Before we could just hop on an airplane. Now it's the real ID requirement.
Right.
And
right.
They'll tell you, well, if you don't want to get the real ID, well, the alternative is the passport. But to get the passport, they're still compelling you one way or another to use either the Social Security number or other documents that must have had the Social Security number attached to it, or all of it.
And in reality, no. I'm the demonstration of it. You have to live free. Freedom isn't free, and neither is slavery.
Absolutely.
They're both costly.
I had another question about prepositions and how that might play into this. All right. So
okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag. The meaning, I honor it. I'm not part of it. I owe money to the bank. That's an obligation towards, but not a membership in. I report to my supervisor. And that's accountability, direction, separate person, such. But when you say of, that changes things, doesn't it? If I say of, I say I'm a citizen of France. That means I'm a member. I belong to it. I am an employee of Google. I am a part of it. And so when we pledge allegiance not of the flag, it's to it. And
well, we don't. Since I've had this revelation, I can't in good faith do that. My whole reality of everything that comes, let your yes be yes, your no be no. I pledge allegiance to no inanimate object. I can't do it. My whole family, and I didn't teach this when we started living this lifestyle. There's just certain things that just, it's like I didn't see the Matrix movie, so I know there's a different thing, but I understand the concept. You're like, wait a minute, I'm out of the fog. I see clearly. No, I can't pledge allegiance. I can't sing worship to a flag. I can't do it. I will, like I stand for the national anthem. I stand because the scripture says to honor all men. They're created in the image of God. So I stand during the national anthem. In my heart, I am honoring the people. I don't necessarily face a flag, but when I stand, I'm honoring the people who are created in the image of God. And I take pleasure in it. I'm not going to sing the song, unless maybe you get to verse 4, which is honoring God, right? But which they never do. So I don't pledge allegiance to anything, but of the, here's the other thing about citizenship. In reality, when you swear that you're a citizen, wait a minute, that's a conclusion, that's not a fact. I could swear I've got a U.S. passport because they made a determination, according to the facts, that I have that status of protection. But I can't swear that I'm a U.S. citizen. I can swear that my mom told me I was born in Castro Valley, California. You know what I mean? And that she was born on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles. I can tell you facts in an affidavit, but not conclusions. So it is. It's kind of like a lot of guys at seminars, especially in the patriot or sovereign community. It's a facade. It's a fiat world, right? So we have been conditioned to make confessions that are either not true or that. How do I make that as a proper confession? That was Abby's concern about the passport application. And so what she did, I said, well, if you want to qualify what you put on the piece of paper on the form, you write it in a letter. And there's certain blocks. She says, see attached letter. And America is just you're free to write see attached letter on the form and then tell what is true, right? So there's no question about it. You're not violating your soul, signing something that they define the language that isn't correct or is close to correct. So that's something we've learned by not going to a seminar. Just when you see what Jesus said, let your yes be yes, your no, no. You're complete. Talk about liberating.
I wanted to ask, this is actually Garrett's question, kind of tangentially,
Okay.
but the form, the actual, in the case of the DS-11,
Right.
he's questioning whether or not, is there a law or statute that says you must use that form? Or do you believe you can, and Garrett might be able to ask it better, or could you make your own form? Is there anything that would prevent you from making your own form?
I would say it goes to the 22 CFR provisions. So you've got the statute that says the secretary, 28 USC 211 or something like that, right? 211A, and it gives them the power to do the passport, tells who they're not allowed to give the passport to. So that's, I guess, 22 USC 212, tells who's ineligible. And then at that point, they're given the power to make regulations. So the Code of Federal Regulations takes the statute and puts flesh on it. How are we going to operate this thing? So you got to go read those requirements, because under 22 U.S. CFR 51.2 whatever. Okay, I used to have all these memorized, but it tells you that there's certain things that they can ask you for things, and if you don't fulfill it and it's reasonable, they can deny your application. So in Abby's case, it wasn't reasonable.
The idea was that they have this I declare under penalty of perjury section, which
Right.
then they want you to be a citizen or a non-citizen national of the United States.
Right.
And it's the of the United States part, because a lot of these people want to do the passport and be like I said, they want to be a national, which they're claiming they're not a citizen of the United States, but they're a citizen or a national of the state that they were born in, kind of that idea.
Right.
Before the 14th Amendment kind of thing. So my thing was that as long as you give them all the information that they need, you should be able to not have to sign to that declaration that you are, and then provide all the information that they need to issue a passport. That was kind of my argument. Yeah.
Well, I would say, again, I deal with a lot of people who have convictions that partly understand the law they're dealing with, and it's so obfuscated that it is a confusion. And for the sake of their conscience, you write a letter. I'm concerned about. You can say, I'm concerned about this. I'm a little bit confused. If you say U.S. citizen, the way you say of, the preposition makes me believe that you're leading me to this, and that I don't believe that is me. You can say in good faith and good conscience and explain what your situation is. And I've seen guys get who I understood as being U.S. citizens, getting a one that said national, right? And they'll do it. Sure, okay. Well, what do you want me to do? And you can say, well, I'd prefer it to be declared as national because I can, in good faith, confess myself as a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
I can just say, I've got evidence that I was born on the land.
Well, so it's just the way it's the wording. I got it right here. It says, I am a citizen or a non-citizen national of the United States. I don't know why it doesn't say I am a citizen of the United States or a non-U.S. or a non-citizen national. Well, I don't know why it says right after non-citizen national of the United States. I feel like that non-citizen national of the United States is like a different term. It actually doesn't mean national. It means a whole different term in their books, to my understanding.
What is the Constitution? What's the Constitution say about the president?
Citizen.
Does it say of what? Does it say of or in, on? What does the Constitution say?
I don't know exactly. Rez,
So-
can you pull that up, Rez?
Right. So what I do, like the word person, people say a person is a corporation. Not always. And sometimes there's something called read Blackstone's Commentaries on Law. He talks about a natural man, the natural person, and the artificial person. Artificial persons are corporations. So you're right, the word person is used in law for corporations, but in reality, if you reach back, it's an artificial person or a natural person, natural man. I read the Bible, just King James Bible used the word person in it. So this was for me to try to distinguish between this language. Where can I say person without getting all upset? If you can't say person without getting upset, don't say it, and say whatever words you want to use. Yeah. But look back and say, well, what is my reference? What did the Constitution say? Did the Constitution say, I haven't got it memorized, but to be the president of the United States, you have to be a natural born citizen of the United States. Does it say the United States of America? I don't know. What's the language? I haven't, I can't, it's not in front of me right now. But what I do is I say, well, that's not a 14th Amendment strange construction trickery, right? It's not. 14th Amendment is its own little monster, and I think it has purpose, it has intention, and you don't have to allow it to have its power over you if you don't want it. But with regard to the language of what is a U.S. citizen, you got to go back and find out what the language was when they were writing the Constitution. And then, if there's any question, again, I write, see the attached letter. Everything I do is see the attached letter. I've won lawsuits over see the attached letter. I won my Navy case over the see the attached letter. Right? Here's my request sheet to re-enlist. They said, yes. And it said, see attached letter. And then they ordered me, take this to personnel support detachment, but don't attach the letter. I said, but you approved it with see attached letter. Well, I'm ordering you, right? You're going to be violating a lawful order. So I went to personnel support detachment. I went up to the officer in charge and go to the clerk and went all the way to the top. I said, my officer in charge told me the following thing. Here's what it says. And he said, don't attach it. She says, just give me both of them. Right? Okay, guess what I won on? See attached letter. Well, did they address his letter? No, they didn't. They totally ignored it when they processed his paperwork. Well, guess what, guys? You blew it. You're going to have to pay him for the rest of his life. So see attached letter. Before two or more witnesses, let every word be established. Let your yes be yes, your no be no. And if there's any question on the form, take dominion over the form. God says, take dominion, be fruitful and multiply. First two commandments, we got to obey them. Take dominion. This is liberating language. Right? You take dominion and bless them.
My search on that. Sorry. My search on that came back with this, and it's funny because it says, this is the most important question you've asked. So anyways, the constitutional text exactly as written, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5. I hope that's the one you're looking for.
Yeah.
No person except a natural-born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible to the office of president. Neither shall any person be eligible to that office who shall not have attained to the age of 35 years and been 14 years a resident within the United States.
Then
the
so look, it's an of.
Go back and start over again.
All right, I'll
dissect it.
And then I'm going to add a little prepositional thing to it. Okay, so it says no person except a natural-born citizen or
cut out the part, because what they're trying to do is define like the people that founded the country. You know what I mean? So there should be, is there commas and stuff? So it says natural born. Can you add of the United States to that in some way if there's removing? Maybe I should pull it up. I don't want to ruin the screen.
So in what I pulled up there, as far as the prepositional analysis on this, it says, notice the precise language, natural born citizen, no preposition following, or a citizen of the United States, the preposition of. And then at the time of the adoption of this Constitution is a temporal qualifier. The Constitution creates two categories for presidential eligibility. Number one, natural born citizen, no of the United States following it. Category 2, citizen of the United States with of, but only for founders' generation. And the critical distinction the founders made, why would the founders write natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States if they meant the same thing? Canon of statutory construction, different words mean different things. The or proves these are distinct categories.
I disagree.
Okay.
Just common logic. Again, I don't care, right? I personally don't care, but it matters to people, and I disagree with that interpretation. It seems like they're taking that statement and fitting it into their paradigm instead of going, what should my paradigm be? So, and the easy way of reading this is natural born citizen or, and then the other thing, which is somebody, because there's a question, or what about the people that, because of when the thing was ratified, what's the trigger date for that, right? So they had to, I'm looking at logic, they had to deal with those who, because this thing's in transition. But you don't get rid of the word of just because you said or this other, like a natural born citizen, that's a no-brainer, or somebody that's, there's a timeline involved, of the United States. Both are subject to the preposition. That's my reading of it as a just observing English. So again, I'm trying to find my paradigm, not fit into my paradigm.
So I pulled it up. It says, no person except a national born citizen, comma. So that is, it doesn't say of the United States after that citizen. Then it says, or, after the comma it says, or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of the Constitution. So a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of the Constitution would be like the
somebody came from England, somebody born elsewhere.
Yeah. So like George Washington or Benjamin Franklin, all those people that weren't born on the land at the time, but
my ancestor Duncan Carmichael is one of that category. My ancestor, his son, who was born in Amelia County, Virginia, he would have been the prior. He was a natural born citizen. So they came in and were in good faith, a member of the people.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to get at is that it's the first part is natural born citizen. It doesn't say anything about the United States or anything, but then it's clear that it's a citizen of the United States, which means it's the political class of the United States. So it's a person that has come in as a political, citizen of the United States.
You made a distinction.
They're defining two different citizens. There is my understanding.
With the comma there. Right?
Yes, with the comma.
Right after natural born citizen, if there were no comma, it would be a different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there a comma after the second classification?
Yes.
Yes.
So there's two commas. So the preposition of applies to both.
Yes. Well, the second comma, I think, is separating the idea of at the time of the adoption of the Constitution.
It's a second category. So you have a first thing. Oh yeah, by the way, there's this other thing, but both of them are subject to the comma, which means the preposition of the United States attaches to the first statement, natural born citizen of the United States, and then with the segment in the commas, that's like, including as also and also. That's essentially what that is.
Here, let me pull it up. Let me so you can see, because I don't read it that way. If you look at it,
it does look different to me as well.
And this is why Herb Titus, well-respected guy,
I'm going to look
said, yeah, we're still debating. Right? There's still a little bit of fog regarding that, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to put her on the screen?
All right. Yeah, there it is. You see it?
Yeah, it's tiny. You got to make it larger.
David, you'll have to expand it yourself.
Okay. I can. Yeah, I got a little spandy thing. This is great. You guys got nice bells and whistles. Now, no person except a natural-born citizen, or a citizen of the United States, Okay, so let's eliminate the or a citizen of the United States. Let's strike that line. The proper way to read this regarding the first thing is no person except national-born citizen at the time of the adoption of this. Oh, no, that's 2 commas.
Yeah, that's 2 commas. That's what the at the time of the United States is referring to the citizen of the United States part, and it's not. I don't think it's referring to the national-born citizen part.
No person except a natural-born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible. Oh, you know what? This is good. Thank you guys for this conversation. There's a difference between a natural-born citizen and a citizen of the United States. And as I understand it, Congress has the power under their, Article 1 to, what do they call it? It's nationalization and immigration and all that kind of stuff.
The INA.
That is interesting. So you have it looks to me, can I tell you what, this is the first time I actually read this after all these years.
I broke it down.
No person except a national-born citizen, right? It's different. Or a citizen of the United States. That means it's different. Because it doesn't have the preposition of the United States before the comma.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
And the comma after the citizen of the United States, it's just talking about the at the time of the adoption is referring to the citizen of the United States part.
Or both.
Well, no, I think you could take it would read properly if you took out or the citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution. You could take that part out. It would read properly. It would read a national-born citizen shall be eligible to the offices of the president. That's how I read it.
Right. Who's got to be? Nobody can be if they haven't been 35 and they haven't been years resident within the United States. But that isn't like Washington, D.C., United States. And the context, it would include the 13 several states, including D.C. or whatever they carved out, right? Because by this time they haven't carved it out yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's okay. You know what? What's good about it? Everybody can see the attached letter. I feel confident that I'm a natural-born citizen, but I'm not a citizen. I'm not a 14th Amendment citizen. Congress has not written a statute declaring me to be an unnatural citizen, a legislative statutory citizen. I'm a natural-born citizen in the context of Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5. Give me a passport.
Bam.
Yeah.
But it may be, now watch this. That means, actually, the statute, USC 1185, whatever, it says it shall be unlawful for a citizen of the United States to leave the country without a passport. It looks like natural-born citizens, it doesn't apply to that statute.
Correct. I would
so
say
it's not unlawful. It's not unlawful for a natural-born citizen to come and go as well. In fact, they got a duty to go wherever they're supposed to go because the First Amendment was take dominion. No, it says Second Commandment. First Commandment was be fruitful and multiply. Second one is to take dominion. So the natural-born citizen has no obligation under that prohibition of a U.S. citizen leaving the United States.
Yeah, and then the idea of the resident within the United States, if you go look up the word resident, it's like a transient. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean the same as dominion.
Right. Or domicile. Domicile. Yeah. Okay. In other words, there's fog, my friend. And and yes, you can, if you're the law of protecting religion is true everywhere on the planet because it was created. So I would not feel guilty about walking to Mexico or Canada with or without a passport. I would not feel guilty when I read Blackstone's laws, commentaries on law. He explains this matter of civil law. It's not a moral wrong. It's an arbitrary, hey, you're part of the group, you're part of the team. Here's the rules of the Monopoly game. If you want to play Monopoly, this is how you obey the rules. And so the civil law is supposed to be got penalties like $100 penalty to where you can choose whether or not you can risk the penalty because it, on its face, is not a moral wrong. It's not malum in se, right? It's not a moral wrong. It's mala prohibita. So in the moral scheme of things, it's not an absolute wrong to cross the border, notwithstanding what's in the news. Everybody has a duty to go where they need to go. And you may, face some hassles at the border.
David and Garrett, I don't know how much time you've got left, but
I was just gonna bring some people in if they wanted to have a quick Q&A.
I wanted to see if David wanted to say more about the Robert Kennedy and the HSS.
Yeah, I want to say what it is I've been alone. I've been in my little office. I don't have a charisma to be a leader and get a big faction of people to get behind me. But I realize this needs to be done. In my logic, I tell myself, I shouldn't be the guy taking on the banking cartel by myself. This is so important. It needs people who really know what they're doing. So here I'm discovering I changed my paradigm on citizenship right here on your show, right? Yeah. That's where I am in discovery of all that. I've discovered a lot over the last 30 years, but it shouldn't just be me. Where are the people with chutzpah?
Well, that's the idea of the fundamentals up there. It's the fun part is supposed to be Freedom Unchained Network. So I'm trying to get a network of people together, because I think we're all stronger together than we are trying to do all this all separately. And we all have a little different a little different way we come at it, and we all kind of learn from each other in a different way. One person looks at it in a certain way that can bring some clarity to another person, just like we did here. Just trying to break this citizen thing down it all helps everybody out. So you guys, everybody in the chat, I just put a Go Brunch, our room that we're in here. So if you guys want to come in and ask David some questions before we jump out, I think I just hear somebody come in.
I wanted to share this with you as well, David. I don't know if you're interested. I think Garrett has offered this before to others. I can offer it as well. But if you'd like a room like this, that could be provided for you.
Well, now that we're in fellowship, I would say, we'll see in a couple of months. Because even I used to do my own websites, and I was on top of it. I've got a guy who's volunteered to update my website for me. I'm going to stimulate his economy wherever I can. I appreciate that, and we'll see what happens, right? Because you guys care, you'll be on my list of people. Like you've got the document. If you can put that document that I'm sending to Mr. Kennedy and even the memorandum in support, I think your listener is going to care if they read that. I think they're going to be pretty excited about it.
Yeah, so David sent us before the show chat that all his documents he wanted us to share with you. I put them in my Telegram group, so I put that in the link in the description. Go to the Telegram group. You can go download those, check those documents out if you guys want as well. So
I don't have the exhibits. You don't have the exhibits. I've got the exhibits, but it doesn't matter. The exhibits are just a...
If anybody wants to come do a quick Q&A with us, jump into Go Brunch. David, the other David, he wanted to come in and have a quick conversation. So I put the link in the description. So find that, and then we can get some questions. But go ahead. you had more.
Oh, me? Go ahead.
Yeah, if you had anything, I didn't want to.
Oh, it's good. So what could I add? I did a lot of crazy religious stuff because that's my life. Can I tell you, I've had some miracles. I'm writing a sequel right now to Faith: The Final Frontier. You can go on. I don't make $1 bazillion on there. I had to charge something or they wouldn't put it on Amazon. But you can get a Kindle version of Faith: The Final Frontier. I'm told you read the foreword that was written by my wife, who hadn't read the book. She just lived the life. And she wanted to be the one who gave the first input because she felt like she was the bad guy the whole time. She wasn't the bad guy, but she didn't hear from God. I did. I got the audible, and what do you do when your husband gets an audible and it's ruining your life? So she was faithful to her covenant with me to be married, right? And of course, she's had the benefits, the horrible experience she had, and the ridicule and risk of our survival, and so Faith: The Final Frontier addresses that. Is having a walk where if God doesn't come through, you're dead, right? You've been kicked out of society, and nobody likes you. So even the patriot community doesn't like you. They think you're a mole from the government. Nobody could win a Navy case like that without being
there's a community out there. It's just a little hard to find. We're trying to build it up to make it easier to find.
Right.
I think that's kind of my passion.
I agree. I appreciate that.
Yes, one reason we're trying to do this show. We need to get the David's other name. David, he's running around all of my channels. I left that link in YouTube the chat room. Yeah, and I also told you I left it in the Fun Hall chat. I gave you the directions on that, David.
So we've got Free Radical, you're welcome. Rogue Spear, Edrico Juan Blankney, you're welcome. David Mercy or Messi, and all of you in the chat. I think there's not that many in there right now. You're all welcome to join if you want to join in.
I keep seeing him running around all my different rooms. I keep getting the notifications. He just can't find the link. He'll get here. He eventually gets here. So you have what was that book again?
Faith: The Final Frontier. Using my radio voice, right?
Faith:
The Final Frontier.
The Final Frontier. It's got a double rainbow on this. Not like modern weird, gender issues. That's just celebrating
Faith,
God.
The Final Frontier.
Faith,
Okay, we'll check.
The Final Frontier.
We'll check that out.
Right, and it's I've heard. In fact, there's one chapter somebody said was weird, so they didn't read it. And what it was when I got kicked out of the Navy and trying to explain what my religious conviction was, I didn't want to be like messing up people over this SSN thing. I used it as if it were hypothetical, right? Just to try to avoid people tripping over that issue, over this concept of just obeying God and see what happens. So it's written as hypothetical, but spoiler alert, you guys know that it was about the SSN. And then the other thing is, the reader doesn't know, I was suing the United States at the time. And this was published 2004. We got our judgments in 2005 and 2006, right? So, and I was poor, like having to get sustained by miracles. And there's specific miracles, like to the dollar miracles that happen. And I didn't tell them that the bills I needed to pay that ended up being a certain amount. I don't want to be a spoiler alert. There were $40,000 of legal bills on credit cards that I got without a number. Okay. Wow. And I didn't tell people that. Right. But a few years later, guess what? All those bills got paid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Very cool.
So, yeah, really good stuff. So you're going to get a sequel here shortly. Awesome. We had people's legs lengthened by 1.5 inches and all kinds of weird things.
Yeah.
It got more exciting.
Absolutely. Faith, the Final Frontier.
Yeah. Faith, the Final Frontier.
Yeah, I'll pick it up.
Yes. That's it. And if you want one, I'll send it to you. Because the first episode of the sequel explains the first week that I got the proof. They hadn't been printed, just one proof. And I was selling them. I was selling 350 so I could pay for 1,000 so I could give them away.
I'm
Try and track down David. He keeps running around.
I'm chuckling a little bit here, David. I've just had this memory pop in my mind. I've got a friend of mine.
There you go, David. I just put the link in the description.
He's a banker, and we got in this kind of a conversation, and I had since already stopped using the Social Security number, and a conversation came up, and he asked me if I had one, and I said no, because in my mind, right. It's not mine. It's never been mine, and he unfriended me over this issue.
Right.
I can't understand it, man.
Yeah, it's guys, you know what it comes down, and that's why I keep saying all this religious fanatic stuff. God is real, and Faith and Final Frontier. Tell me that this is coincidental, all right? So, when everybody mocks you because, oh, David's gone out the deep end, he's being evil because he's making his family vulnerable. It's like, don't you think I had that same conversation with the guy who was giving me orders and say, are you crazy? You know what's going to happen to me, right? You know what my wife's going to say? So the point is this: the Bible's not fake, guys. It's truly there's a creator who sent his son to set you free from the penalty of sin. And oh, by the way, he said, ask, seek, knock. And guess what happens? You start asking and seeking and knocking. It can get pretty exciting, kind of terrifying at times, but pretty exciting. And so, I got a check for the rest of my life. I thought I had a photocopy of it on my wall. I don't. It's somewhere around here. I got a check for $162,020.50 with my name on it in the TIN block where the SSN goes. The judgment payment voucher said not applicable.
Yeah, I viewed that.
The required number. It's just crazy. Like, we just got our reality check by reading the Constitution and say, whoa, there's a difference between a natural born citizen and a citizen of the United States.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right here, you changed my paradigm on your show. You're fulfilling your ministry.
Don't we always get this? I mean, I get it listening to music. I get it watching movies or the news. Just anything in life, I get it. And that's why it's really great to have experiences, and especially with people like you and, human connections. I don't know. They spawn. I don't know if I would have came up with this idea had I not been brainstorming about what to talk about.
Right. Right. And again, I'm kind of showing my way of discovering things. I discovered it right on your show. What's the Bible say about person? What did Blackstone say about? What did John Locke say about person? What did the founders? What were they reading? And something they didn't forecast all the subtleties of language where there's ambiguities. That's why now I understand where Herb Titus says, there's still a debate from the high-end experts in law that there's some ambiguity.
Hey, David, nice to have you.
We finally got him in. Took a
David,
while.